Hey everyone, welcome back to another Pnso review. Today we'll be taking a look at their new Audrey, the Lambeosaurus. Pnso has been absolutely spoiling us over the last month or so. They just keep pumping out new release after new release. They just revealed a Sauropelta the other day, and they still have not shown off that Parasaurolophus and T-Rex that they teased months ago, so who knows what else they have in store for us. But I've been looking so forward to this Lambeosaurus ever since Pnso revealed it. I feel like ornithoshayans get the short end of the stick when it comes to dinosaur toy companies. I feel like a lot of companies kind of favor the theropods because they're more exciting and they definitely do sell well. And ornithoshayans just kind of aren't really that well represented in our collections. But man, over the last few weeks, Pnso has really shown some ornithoshayan love. I ended up picking this figure up off of Amazon. It retails for just over $20, and I'll leave a link to that Amazon listing in the description. So before we jump into this review, let's just take a quick look at the packaging of Audrey. It comes in this nice box, just like all the other prehistoric animal models. You got a nice full art picture of Audrey on the front, and then on the side of the box, you do have a close-up of her head, and then also just like all other Pnso figures, you do get a nice little pamphlet that gives you some information on the dinosaur that you purchased. You get some nice full art pictures of Audrey and the headshot right here. And then up here in the corner, you do have the silhouette of Lambeosaurus. Each side of the pamphlet, one side is in English, the other side is in Chinese. So enough about the packaging. Let's take a closer look at this figure. So let's start off with a nice 360-degree view of Audrey the Lambeosaurus. I absolutely love this figure. Love the paint scheme on it. The main body coloration is almost like an aqua green color. Then it's covered in all these white stripes, and it kind of reminds me of sunlight shimmering through water. Then you have this beautiful gloss coat over the crest, and you have some nice orange and yellows with this black outline over it. A really well done Lambeosaurus. For some reason, Lambeosaurus is a pretty well known dinosaur, and a lot of toy companies do not make this dinosaur. The only other two I can think of is the very rare Invicta Lambeosaurus and the Bully Land one. So I'm so happy Pnso decided to give us this Hadrosaur. So let's just do a couple quick measurements before we take a closer look at this figure. This Lambeosaurus is just a hair under 10 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the beak and just under 4 inches to the top of the crest right there. So Lambeosaurus in real life was about 31 feet long. So with those measurements, I'll put this figure somewhere in the 137 scale range. So if you collect 135 to 140 scale, this figure will fit perfectly in your collection. So let's zoom in and take a look at some of the finer details on this figure, starting with this beautiful head sculpt. You can tell by the shape of the crest this figure is sculpted after the species Lambeosaurus lambe from that hatchet-shaped crest. There was actually a lot of species of Lambeosaurus described in the early 1900s, but it was later discovered that most of those were just growth variations within this species. The crest has a nice glossy coat over it. It's a mixture of bright orange and yellows with a nice black outline over it. And then going down to the beak, you can clearly see the nostrils sculpted in. There's a little bit of a glossy coat on the beak since it was most likely covered in a keratin sheath. The eye is painted in orange with a black pupil, and you have all that white striping mixed in with that aqua green color along the side of the head. There's a lot of nice, beautiful scale detail that you can't really see unless you're up close with this model. There's actually a lot of skin impressions of Lambeosaurus, and it was mostly covered from head to toe in small hexagonal scales, and this figure beautifully represents that. There is some orange paint that starts just behind the head that goes all the way down the back to almost the end of the tail, and there is a nice row of spikes along the back that is a really cool looking touch, and then going down to the front legs. You can see the front legs are sculpted very long. Most hadrosaurs probably spent their time walking around on all fours, only rearing up on two legs to browse and possibly get away from predators. The front feet are beautifully sculpted. You can see that fifth digit is not encased in that hoof-like feature that the rest of the digits were encased in. You can see more of those white stripes along the front legs. And then going down to the hind legs are beautifully sculpted. A lot of nice scale detail. You do have a couple random large scales mixed in on the hind legs and body. I think that is a nice touch, but mostly the scale detail on this figure is very fine, just like it would be on the animal in real life. You get more of those white stripes going down, almost down to the ankles, and the hind feet are sculpted also really well. Can't really make out the hooves. The black paint they use kind of mix in with that dark green color, and then turn the figure over. You can see as a light underbelly. And then going down here, you can see almost a cloaca slit, because we always have to check our dino bum holes. And even on the base of the tail, you can see all that really, really fine scale detail on this figure. So all in all, a absolutely beautiful Lambeosaurus. I am in love with this thing. So let's move on with some comparisons. First up is the only other Lambeosaurus figure that is currently available on the market. This is the Bully Lamb one. Now, this is a good figure. I actually really enjoyed this figure. But man, when you compare it to this new Pnso figure, this is definitely a worthy upgrade. The only other Lambeosaurus figure I can think of is the very, very rare and super expensive old Invicta figure. So yeah, if you're looking for a Lambeosaurus for your collection, definitely go with the Pnso. And next up, I have a bunch of other Hadrosaur figures from other companies. First up is the Charithosaurus from the old Carnegie collection line. And even though this figure is like a decade and a half old, it's still a fantastic figure. And I'm eagerly awaiting the Pnso Charithosaurus, even though I know that figure is a little bit bigger than this Lambeosaurus, even though those two species were pretty much identical in size and length. And next up is the Parasaurolophus. This is another fantastic figure, even though mine has severe warping and leaning issues for some reason. These newer Batat figures, I mean, have a very, very soft plastic that just loves to warp. And next up is another Safari limited figure. Here is the old Hadrosaurus. And next up is another very, very old, the OG Carnegie collection, Maiasaura. And next up is the Mojo Fun Manchurosaurus. And what else do we have here? A bunch of figures to the side on the studio is the new Safari Limited Edmontosaurus. Edmontosaurus was a lot bigger than Lambeosaurus in real life. So if you're looking for scale, these two figures do not scale that well with each other. And lastly, for Hadrosaur figures, here's another Safari limited figure. This is their Griposaurus. And lastly, we have a couple other Pnso figures. Here it is with their new Parasaurolophus, and here it is with their Pachyrhinosaurus. And those two figures do look very nice next to each other. And lastly, can't do a Pnso comparison without it comparing it to their T-Rex. Here it is with Wilson, their T-Rex. I think this Lambeosaurus and T-Rex look really great next to each other. I think they scale almost perfectly. So final thoughts on this new figure from Pnso. I absolutely love this Lambeosaurus. It is pretty much perfect in my eyes. I really can't find any flaws with it, so I highly recommend you add this to your collection. Like I said, ornithochaeans are so underrepresented by most dinosaur toy companies, so it's great that Pnso is showing these dinosaurs some love, and I'm so happy that they're cracking out a lot of these ornithochaeans. We still have a Charithosaurus coming, a Parasaurolophus, Sauropelta. It's a great year if you're a ornithochaean fan. And like I said at the beginning of the review, the link to Amazon if you want to order this figure is in the description. So it kind of looks like I'm stuck home for the next 2 weeks to quarantine for unforeseen circumstances. So expect a lot of reviews coming up on the channel in the next couple weeks, since I'm going to be stuck home bored out of my mind, which kind of works out since Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsians are shipping on Monday, and I have I think 7 or 8 figures from Wave 1 in that set, so it gives me a lot of time in my hands to crank out reviews while I'm stuck home, so be on the lookout for those reviews. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated, and I'll see you guys for the next one.